Welcome to This Australian Open Life, produced by Wise Words Media and Calumny Films. I'm your host, the bloke who walks. So welcome to this first episode, which is going to be purely audio, so you could consider it a podcast. Episode, I want to run through, and sorry if it sounds a bit stilted or a bit stunted, the delivery, but I'm going off some notes, which I don't usually do. But what I want to run through in this episode, coming up in this episode, I just want to basically set the scene for how I'm going to attack these sort of episodes, because we've got to a point where we can't keep putting up commenting on footage taken around the Australian Open Melbourne Park website around Rod Laver, and that'll get old, I'm assuming, so we've got to break it up a bit. So without access to tennis players and officials and media conferences, there's still a big niche that we can fill. So I want to fill you in on what's coming up, and not exactly what to expect, but what I'm going to be trying to be doing with the episodes on this channel, leading through December and into January. And I appreciate the feedback so far. There's been some very kind comments, and it's good to see some of the episodes so far are hitting the mark with the viewers. So coming up in future episodes, we'll be qualifying for the Australian Open, and if you look for our recent episode with the royal blue thumbnail, we did run through the Australian Open is presenting a record 17 qualifying tournaments leading up to January 17 for those players that are trying to crack into the main draw. There's also going to be some episodes which we're going to do a special series called Player Watch. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at those players making a big move who are in really good form or who are really in poor form. We're going to see where they're at in the rankings and see where they are at on their journey. We're going to start off looking at the top 100 to 200 players, the biggest movers, up or down the rankings, and then as we draw closer to the end of January, the top 50 to 100 players, and this is both men and women. And then as things start really getting down to the starting line and towards the starting line for the Australian Open, obviously it'll start becoming clearer who's in the main draw, who's on the edge of qualifying. You've always got injury, illnesses. Who knows what's going to happen with international arrivals and COVID regulations? It's just unreal how there's this new variant that's once again spoiling everybody's party and everybody's plans. So hopefully as we lead into the last 2.5 weeks before the Open, then Player Watch will kick into a high gear, and we'll be looking at the top 50 players. Because even if you're in the top 50, you still got to fight for that spot in the main draw. And besides doing the men and women, we might also look at doubles as well. So there's a lot there we can do without having without having the usual video footage. For Australians listening to this and following the episodes on this channel, be a bit like how Eddie Maguire and Harvey Silver started off the footy show back in the 90s. We don't need access to the players. We don't need to be going on site. There's plenty of successful channels around and successful podcasts that make plenty of great viewing experiences for those that are interested in what's happening around the edges of the mainstream media. Like, say for instance, just digressing here, if you've been following the news on any mainstream website, whether it's The Age, The Australian, The Guardian in the UK, CNN, the coverage is quite thin. It's basically all the main topics. Ash Barty just got engaged. Djokovic still won't tell us if he's vaccinated. Emma's coming from the UK. Like, really, mainstream topics that really don't tell you much about the nitty gritty of what's going on. So that's what Player Watch is all about. It's not just going to be Australian players. It'll also be international players, because as I've said before, tennis is a global sport, and as much as we like to cheer on the Aussies, but Melbourne is a great place to be in January. We love having the international tennis players, but we also love having the international fans who come to visit Melbourne. And I can tell you, some of my favourite memories are the period between the early 80s all the way through to the early 90s with Stefan Edberg, Mats Wilander, Anders Jarrett, all those Swedes and all those Nordic players and the fans that used to be in the stands with the Danish flags and the flags from Finland and Denmark. It was fantastic, so great memories there. What else are we looking to do? So trying to be original and trying to be unique and trying to find a niche that'll keep people coming back. Because one of the reasons I'm doing these sort of episodes audio only and just having background filler with shots of Melbourne Park, shots of trams, is because every man and his dog is sitting in front of a camera in their room and a green screen. I want to do something different. So it comes down to topics. How can I make topics interesting? How can I present something slightly different? So an idea that I've come up with is we want to put the volunteers in the spotlight. The people that help make these events go round. They do it for the love. They do it because it's part of their lifestyle, part of their personality. The people whose passion makes the Australian Open come to life, and it's not just at Melbourne Park. And I'm thinking of the regional tournaments in Bendigo and Traralgon here in Victoria. So we're going to have a series called the Sports Fan Spotlight. And what I want to do, I want to interview volunteers, anyone over the age of 18 who's a driver or a linesman or helps out in the canteen or drives the players to and from their accommodation to be at court on time, anyone who helps with organising, any of the unsung volunteers that put in time and effort and hang around on wet days or hot days and get home exhausted every night from their day in the sun on court. They're the people that this Australian Open Life would like to talk to, the volunteers, the people that put in their energy and their sweat and do it for the love of it. So if you're one of those people, please get in touch through Wise Words Media, info@wisewords.com.au. I can either come to you or we can do something like everybody else over the internet with Zoom. Another thing I want to fill you in on is exactly what sort of coverage are we going to give the Australian Open this year. So this Australian Open Life is just a one-man band. We're not going to be able to be everywhere, although we would love to. If an opportunity came up to be sponsored or sent into state, we'll do it. But for the moment, we're planning to bring you footage from on site at Bendigo, one day there. Planning to cover the entire qualifying days for the Australian Open at Melbourne Park, which is January 10 to January 14. Try and be golden tickets. You've got to be working for a recognised media organisation, broadcasting organisation, or if you're freelance, which I am, you've got to be commissioned directly and have some letter of introduction from the commissioning editor. So I can't promise anything, but what I can promise you is we're going to try and cover this period, December, January. We're going to try and put out something every day We're going to be putting out news bites of 3 minutes in length, as you've already seen. We're going to try and put those up at 8:30 every weekday, and something supplementing that, complementing that at 4 o'clock each day. And anything else outside that, we'll put it up as well, because we know that people are hungry for tennis, and that's just in a normal world. After 2 years of COVID, it's not just us in Melbourne, it's just not tennis fans in Sydney or Adelaide. We all need our fix of the Australian summer with those... we just want to hear commentators talking about the heat rule and the light bulb was the heat bulb on centre court, toilet breaks, just all the usual stuff, the grumpy Nick Kyrgios in the media conference. We just want to get back as close to what we're familiar with as possible, and keep COVID to the side and out of mind. So we're getting on into around the 12-minute mark here, so we'll wrap it up. But last night I recorded a test episode, which was going to be the first episode for this particular podcast type series. I'm going to put this one up first instead, because I recorded the audio with that episode, which will come up in the next couple of days, and you'll hear that I've recorded it through the laptop, and it was really just a test. And I'm quite happy with the way it's come up, and I'm thrilled with some feedback that's come through today about the trams, doing the news bite about the trams and the old W class trams. So I'm recording this episode through the Sony Vlog ZV-1 vlogging camera that I've got, and using the audio on that. So that's why the next episode you'll hear a stark difference in audio quality. If you're that type of person who is incredibly picky about 4K footage versus 720 footage, and audio recorded on a laptop in a room with no professional mic, as opposed to being recorded on this Sony. So apologies to those people that have those really OCD tendencies about what sort of content they consume in terms of audio or video. But as always, it's about the quality, and I'm hoping to bring quality content in terms of topics. And I can promise you one thing: I'll try and bring you something that you cannot find in mainstream media or on sports TV, Fox or sports radio, because I'm just like you. I'm just a pleb who takes an interest in the tennis. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. I love when tennis comes around, but I love when the Formula One comes around, when the cricket comes around, when the Ashes is on at the moment. All those things are part of the flavour of life in Melbourne, and what this channel aims to give you is a flavour of what it's like to be someone who really enjoys watching and being at the Australian Open in Melbourne every year. And then there's the weather, there's the lifestyle, there's the things around Melbourne which I can also present. So wrapping up, what I really would like from the viewers and the listeners, I need you to tell me what you want, because I know what I like. And what I've learnt in creating not just episodes for this channel but my other channels is that what I like doesn't automatically get traction on YouTube, and it doesn't automatically hit the sweet spot for the people that I've presented it to. So what would really help me is I want to create stuff that you have a say in. And to give you an example, if you look at yesterday's News Bite episode, it was also on trams, but it was about the Happy Slam trams that I just accidentally happened to film. The singing tram driver, and he's well known in Melbourne. He's been in the media. He's been broadcast on quirky reports on the news. He drives trams on my side of town, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. You'll see he's singing into the microphone, which is normally used for telling cars to get out of the way of the tram. Now, why I decided to create that episode of News Bites number 4 about the Happy Slam is because it was specifically prompted by some feedback from one of the viewers on the channel. So Caroline, I'm going to shout out to you. Thanks for that feedback about the Happy Slam, because indirectly you gave me an insight into what you enjoy about the Australian Open. And this comes back to what I was saying about having really unique topics for this channel. I want to be able to put up information about not just the tennis. The tennis is the what's the word I'm looking for? The tennis is the stage. But I want to populate the stage with things that interest people, items that interest people. I want to populate this content with things that interest you. It's not just going to be about fast editing and really ripping music. Done as best as I can to make it interesting to look at. Like, it's got to be a reason to keep you coming back. And if I can find the topics that you're interested in and marry that to the footage, and then if I get lucky enough to get a media accreditation that I can actually film some of the players, because I won't be I'm very respectful of broadcasting content, that I won't be, where I won't be using unauthorised photos or video footage of players at the tournament. But that's the niche that this channel wants to fill. We want to take you behind the scenes, and just if you've never been to Melbourne before, you don't know, you can see it on a Google map, you can see it, but there's nothing like being there, and that's what this channel is aiming to do. So please tell me what you want, tell me what you like. Hopefully there won't be too much feedback about what you don't like, but I want to take that all on board, marry it, integrate it into what I'm doing, which then will hopefully make it good for a good viewing experience for yourself. So to wrap up, I've gone a little bit over, but I decided to record this while I was in a chatty mood. And to finish off, please, if you can at least like this video. The more likes the content racks up each episode, the more it's going to get shared by whatever gremlins in the algorithms that run YouTube. Subscription, of course, is definitely appreciated, but if you keep coming back and watching, if you're watching a part of the way, all the way, some of the way, it's pushing up the watch time, which in turn is increasing the average views and increasing the click-through rate, which is all this channel wants, to get some traction and then get spread around. So if you can share certain episodes that you like, screenshots or whatever with your friends, or tell your friends, and especially if you've got any connection whatsoever, not just to the tennis community but to any sporting clubs, if you're involved in the sporting community, please share this around, because I can promise you, last night I was doing some desktop research looking for information about, and I'll wrap up here, looking for information about the Bendigo International. And as much as you can do a Google search on Australian Open 2022 and all the common search terms, all the information that kept coming up for 2 to 3 pages into the Google rankings was the same media release and the same story in exactly the same words, in exactly the same order, exactly the same paragraphs of Craig Tiley's press conference back in the last week of November. And I had to think outside the box to find information about the Bendigo International, which I eventually found. It took me about 10 minutes. So what that told me is that there is a niche for this sort of content. It's really hard to find information about the Australian Open outside of the normal search parameters if you don't have your favourite website or your favourite source of information. If you're not familiar with the sports media in Melbourne, whether it's on radio or online, if you don't know that, and I'll mention it here, if you don't know that the Australian Open has its own radio show online, so does the APT Tour. There's so many different, and we're just another one. But what I won't be afraid of doing is sharing that information with you, because I'm not trying to create a community of listeners that I keep all to myself. It's all about sharing what I know, and if people share things back with me, then we can all share it together, and that information is just all about us all enjoying the Australian Open in 2022. So we've hit the 20-minute mark or round about it. So we'll wrap up there. You can hear the music coming on. Bear with me while I get into the swing of refining and crafting the way all this content is edited and put together, because I'm doing it all myself. I've got a fair idea what I'm doing, but we'll get by the end of December, hopefully we'll be a bit more slick with the intros, and even just verbally presenting like this, it'll be a lot more smoother and it won't be so stilted. But I see it's only been a week that I've been going and I see a lot of traction. So thanks, I'm enjoying it. So any queries, suggestions, if there's anything you want filmed, bear in mind that it is just me, but I will try to get around if there is something specifically at Melbourne Park or the surrounds of Melbourne Park or in the CBD, and of course if I can get into those media conferences or within a bull's roar of any player practicing, I'll be doing it. So that's it for this episode, episode 1 of This Australian Open Life, also known as the podcast. I'm the bloke who walks. You've been listening to This Australian Open Life. This Australian Open Life is produced by Wise Words Media and Calmany Films. We're based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks again for listening. Bye for now.